After I paid for my stepsister's entire wedding, the venue, the flowers, the food, even her dress, she posted a guard at the gate with photos of my children. Above their faces, in bold black letters, it said, "Do not admit." I froze. My 6-year-old son clutched my hand, his little voice trembling. "Mom, did we do something wrong?" I couldn't answer. I just stared at those photos my babies treated like intruders at an event I had paid for. Kira, my stepmother, smiled and said, "It's not personal, Emily. It's for the aesthetic." Aesthetic. That word burned into me as I turned away, holding my daughter close. We got into the car and drove off in silence. 2 hours later, my phone rang. "This is Martin," a cold voice said. "The wedding is off. They're coming to beg. Don't open the door." And then, someone knocked. When people looked at us from the outside, we seemed like the perfect blended family, polished smiles, polite laughter, Sunday brunches in color-coordinated outfits. But beneath all that gloss was a quiet hierarchy everyone understood. Chloe was the star. I was the support staff. Dad remarried when I was 12. Kira swept in with her high heels and honey voice, promising a fresh start. She brought her daughter Chloe blonde, photogenic, and effortlessly adored. While I learned how to pack my own lunch and study late into the night, Chloe learned how to get things handed to her with a pout and a sigh. She called me M, like it was affection, but it always sounded like an order. "M, can you iron this? M, can you take my pictures for school? M, can you drop me off?" And somehow, I always said yes. As we grew up, nothing changed. I became the responsible one, the one who showed up early, who fixed things, who sent gifts when others forgot. Chloe became the influencer, the golden child with beige sweaters, perfect hair, and a feed full of quiet luxury. Kira adored her like she'd been carved from light. "You should take notes from your sister," she'd say, half joking, half serious. When Chloe got engaged to Parker, a man whose smile looked like it had a PR manager, the entire family acted like the royal wedding was about to air on television, and that's when Kira called me. "Emily," she said sweetly over the phone. "We're counting on you to make this perfect. You've always stepped up." That phrase, "you've always stepped up," hit like an old bruise. It's what they said when they needed favors. When Dad needed a loan, just until payday. When Chloe needed a new laptop for college projects. Every time, I stepped up. Every time, it cost me something: money, time, peace. Mark, my husband, overheard the call. "Don't do it, Em," he warned. "You can love your family without bankrupting yourself for them." But I smiled the way people do when they're trying to convince themselves everything will be fine. "It's just one wedding," I said. "What's the worst that could happen?" I didn't know that sentence would haunt me later. That night, I looked at our savings spreadsheet, preschool tuition, rent, groceries, a little cushion for emergencies. It was tight but stable. Then Kira's voice replayed in my mind. "You've always stepped up. Maybe this time, stepping up would earn me their respect. Maybe this time, they'd finally see me." I didn't realize they already did. They saw me exactly for what I was, the one who always pays. Dinner at Dad and Kira's house always felt like stepping onto a movie, set expensive candles, linen napkins, and the scent of lemon polish covering something rotten underneath. That night, the family dinner was just another stage. Kira greeted us with air kisses. "Emily, darling, Chloe's got something so exciting to show you." Chloe appeared 20 minutes late, glowing like a commercial. She wore a white silk blouse, her engagement ring catching every bit of light in the room. "Parker and I finally decided on a theme," she announced, sliding into her chair. "Classic, elegant, minimalist luxury." Dad poured wine for everyone except Mark. He still hadn't forgiven my husband for questioning family decisions. Then, Kira placed a thick white binder on the table, glossy, organized, terrifyingly official. "Here's the preliminary plan," she said, smiling like a realtor about to close a deal. I flipped it open. Each page had photos of venues, cakes, table settings, and the part that made my stomach drop: price tags. "Venue deposit, $12,800, Kira began. "Catering first installment, $8,750. Florist retainer, $2,000, $200. DJ and live string duo, $3,100. Content creator team, $2,500. She paused, her manicured finger tapping the total. 30,000, give or take. I blinked. That's a lot. Oh, don't panic, Chloe said, waving a hand. We're all contributing. I exhaled. Good. So how are we splitting it? Kira and Dad exchanged a look, the kind of silent language that meant I wouldn't like the answer. Kira smiled that smile I'd learned to fear. Sweetheart, your father and I took care of so much over the years. We just thought this time, you could handle the deposit. You're doing so well with your business, aren't you? Translation, we're not paying a cent. Mark shifted beside me, his jaw tightening. Emily, we talked about budgets, he murmured. Chloe leaned forward, all fake sympathy. Come on, Em. You always step up. It's kind of your thing. My cheeks burned. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for the responsible one to say yes. I swallowed hard. Fine, I said. I'll cover the deposit. Wonderful, Kira clapped. We'll sort the rest later, as a family. Later never came. After dinner, as I helped clear the table, Kira leaned close enough for me to smell her perfume roses and control. You're a blessing, Emily, she whispered. Chloe's day will be perfect because of you. On the drive home, Mark didn't speak until we pulled into our driveway. You just volunteered 30 grand for a woman who once sold your prom dress on eBay, he said flatly. I tried to laugh, but it came out broken. It's fine, it's her wedding. He turned to me, eyes sharp in the dark. No, Em. It's her test. And you just failed it again. I didn't answer, but somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispered that he might be right. A week after that dinner, the messages began. At first, they were small, polite, wrapped in emojis and fake warmth. Kira. Hey sweetheart, small favor, the florist needs a deposit today. We'll reimburse soon. Chloe. DJ discount ends tonight. Can you just send it now? I'll pay you back Friday 20. Friday came and went. So did the reimbursement. By the second week, I was $10,000 lighter and one apology poorer. I started keeping a note in my phone called Wedding Payments, Temporary. Temporary like hope. I wrote each amount, each date, each lie that sounded like love. Mark watched me tap at my calculator one night while folding laundry. How much have you sent so far? He asked. Just a few things, I said. How much, Em? I hesitated. Around 14. He dropped the shirt in his hand. 14,000? Emily, are you serious? They said they'll pay it back. Mark laughed without humor. They said that about your dad's truck loan, about Chloe's laptop, about... I know, I cut him off. But it's family. He stared at me for a long time. Family doesn't need to print your name on receipts to remember it. His words hit me like a quiet truth I didn't want to hear. The next few days blurred into endless requests. Venue wants full payment early. Parker forgot his tux deposit. Could you just cover it? We're drowning, Em. Every message carried the same unspoken threat. If you say no, you're the problem. At work, while my yoga students breathed through poses, I could barely inhale. My body moved automatically, stretch, hold, release, but inside, I was folding tighter and tighter. Then came Chloe's social media posts. A story of champagne glasses clinking. A caption, "Dreams do come true when you have people who love you enough to believe." I stared at it for a full minute. People who love you enough to pay your bills? I turned my phone face down. That night, while Mark read bedtime stories to Ethan and Lily, I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by bills, invoices, and Kira's cheerful messages. You're a lifesaver. We're so grateful, sweetheart. Promise we'll settle up after the honeymoon. I realized something sickening. They didn't even pretend it was a loan anymore. It was an expectation. When I didn't reply fast enough, Kira left a voicemail. Her voice cracked like she'd been crying. Emily, we're under so much stress. Chloe's having anxiety attacks. I know you won't let us down. And that's when I broke. I transferred another $2,500. Then another $1,000 for content lighting. Then another $1,200 for candles. When the last confirmation email pinged on my screen, I stared at it, numb. $30,000. And still, somehow, it didn't buy me a seat at the table, just a bigger bill and a smaller voice. Love that costs you peace isn't love. It's a transaction you never agreed to sign. A month before the wedding, things seemed to calm down. Chloe stopped calling for money, Kira sent polite one-word replies, and Dad pretended not to notice the awkward silences between us. I thought maybe, finally, the worst was over. I was wrong. It started with a message from Kira one Tuesday morning, while I was setting up for my 9 a.m. yoga class. Kira, final head count, sweetie. No kids, right? Bride's vision is upscale. I blinked at the screen. No kids? I typed back quickly. Me. We're a family of 4. Ethan and Lily are coming. Her reply came fast. Kira, we'll figure it out. That phrase again, the family code for, you will bend. That night at dinner, Mark raised an eyebrow when I told him, no kids? After all the money you've sent? He said. They can't even tolerate your children for one day? I tried to defend them. It's probably a space issue. Or maybe noise. Chloe wants everything perfect. He set down his fork. And perfection, to them, means pretending your family doesn't exist. His words hit me like cold water. Across the table, Ethan was talking excitedly about wearing his dinosaur tie, the one he called his lucky explorer tie. Lily wanted to wear the sparkly pink dress Grandma had bought her. Can I bring my frog stickers for Aunt Chloe? She asked. My throat tightened. Of course, baby. Mark leaned back, watching me quietly. You know they'll break your heart, right? I smiled, but it felt brittle. Maybe this time will be different. The next day, Chloe called. Her voice was syrupy sweet, the way it always was before she asked for something. Quick thing. The planner says having kids there might ruin the aesthetic. You understand, right? The aesthetic? I repeated, my tone sharper than I intended. Well, there'll be candles, glassware, a very delicate setup. It's not personal, Em. Not personal? I snapped. You're literally banning my children, Chloe giggled awkwardly. It's just the vibe we're going for. I hung up before she could say another word. Later that evening, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my reflection. The woman in the mirror looked tired, the kind of tired that came from years of being reasonable. Mark came in, holding a cup of tea. You could just skip the whole thing, he said softly. I can't, I whispered. I already paid for it. He sighed. And that's exactly why they think they own you. His words lingered in the air as I sipped the tea. Outside, rain pattered against the window, each drop sounding like a countdown. I didn't know then, but that message, no kids, wasn't just a rule. It was a preview of the humiliation they had already planned for us. Because when the day finally came, I'd realized the aesthetic wasn't about flowers or glassware. It was about erasing us completely. The morning of the wedding felt heavy before it even began. The air hung still, gray clouds brushing the tops of the Portland hills. I stood in front of the mirror, smoothing the wrinkles in my only formal dress, navy blue, simple but clean. Mark adjusted his tie, then helped Ethan with his dinosaur one. Lily twirled in her pink dress, the tulle brushing her knees like tiny clouds. You look beautiful, sweetheart, I told her. And sparkly, she grinned. Aunt Chloe will love it. I smiled, forcing myself to believe that. We packed snacks, wipes, and a spare pair of shoes, the kind of careful preparedness every parent carries. In the car, the kids sang along to their playlist while Mark drove, his jaw tight. You sure about this? He asked quietly. No, I admitted. But I need to see it through. The drive took 40 minutes. The venue was a renovated barn turned luxury wedding space, all white drapes, fairy lights, and manicured gardens. It looked like a dream, until it didn't. At the entrance stood a tall man in a black suit, a clipboard in his hands. He smiled politely. Guest name? Emily Carter, I said. He scanned the list, then hesitated. And these are your children? Yes, I said slowly, glancing at Ethan and Lily. He sighed, lowering his voice. Ma'am, I'm afraid I can't let them in. Mark frowned. Excuse me? The man flipped the clipboard toward us. Inside a clear plastic sleeve were 2 color printouts, school photos of my children. Across their faces, In thick black marker were the words, "Do not admit." I felt my pulse explode in my ears. "What the hell is this?" Mark's voice was sharp. The man looked apologetic. "I'm just following the bride's instructions." I blinked, my brain refusing to process the image: my son's missing tooth, my daughter's pigtails, both labeled like warnings. Lily tugged my sleeve. "Mommy, why's my picture there?" My throat locked. "Because they made a mistake, baby." Then I saw movement near the doorway. Kira appeared, all poise and pearls, her smile lacquered. Chloe peeked from behind her, nervous but silent. "Oh, Emily," Kira said softly, as if we'd arrived late to brunch. "We tried to call you. There must have been a mix-up." "No calls," I said. My voice trembled, but not from weakness, from anger. "It's just logistics," she said smoothly. "The planner wanted an adult, only atmosphere. It's for the aesthetic." I laughed. A short, ugly sound. "The aesthetic? You printed my children's faces like they're criminals." Kira tilted her head, her voice flattening. "Let's not make a scene, Emily. It's Chloe's day." Mark stepped forward. "You humiliated my family. There's already a scene." Chloe finally spoke, her tone defensive. "It wasn't personal, Em. You know how planners are. They're strict about vision." "Vision?" I said, shaking. "Your vision includes erasing my kids?" Ethan's lip trembled. "Did we do something bad?" I knelt down, cupping his face. "No, sweetheart, you did nothing wrong." The wedding coordinator hovered nearby, eyes darting like she wanted to disappear. Other guests walked past, pretending not to notice, their smiles stiff. "Please," Kira said, in that careful, performative voice she used when she wanted to control the narrative. "Don't ruin this moment." I stood slowly. "You ruined it when you turned my family into props." I pulled an envelope from my purse, the wedding card we'd prepared, the one holding a gift check I now wished I could set on fire. I placed it firmly in Kira's hand. "Congratulations," I said. Kira blinked. "You're leaving?" "Yes," I said quietly. "You didn't invite us." Mark took Ethan's hand. I lifted Lily into my arms. We turned toward the parking lot. As we walked away, the crunch of gravel under our shoes sounded louder than any applause inside. The children were quiet, confused but trusting. In the car, Lily pressed her cheek against my shoulder. "Can we go home now?" "Yes, baby," I whispered. "We're going home." Mark's hands were steady on the wheel, but his voice cracked when he finally spoke. "You did the right thing, Em." I stared out the window as the venue disappeared behind us, fairy lights fading into fog. For the first time in my life, I hadn't stepped up. I'd stepped out. We drove in silence for a while, the road curling through pine trees. Then Mark reached over, resting his hand on mine. "You finally stood up," he said softly. "Not for them. For you." I nodded, tears sliding down my cheeks. It shouldn't have taken this long to learn. End of 4. When we got home, Ethan asked if he could have fries for dinner. Lily wanted to watch Finding Nemo. So we did. And as laughter filled the room again, I realized something I'd never dared to believe before. You don't owe your peace to people who trade your dignity for their aesthetic. That night, I fell asleep to the sound of my children's breathing, proof that I'd made the only choice that mattered. 2 hours after we left the wedding, the house was finally calm again. Ethan and Lily were sprawled on the living room rug, coloring frogs and dinosaurs while Mark reheated leftover pasta. It should have been an ordinary Saturday night, but the silence felt heavier than it should have. I kept replaying the image in my head, their faces under that black, ugly ink. "Do not admit." Then my phone rang. An unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello?" A man's voice, deep and measured, came through. "Is this Emily Carter?" "Yes." "This is Martin, Parker's father." I froze. Martin was the one who'd written the checks for most of the wedding, a man so controlled that even his silence sounded expensive. "I just saw the list," he said flatly. "The photos. The guard." I didn't breathe. He continued, voice like cold metal. "The wedding is off." "What?" I whispered. "They're on their way to your house to beg," he said. "Don't open the door." The line went dead. For a moment, I stood there, the hum of the refrigerator suddenly deafening. Then, outside, Headlights swept across our window. Mark looked up. "Who is it?" Before I could answer, the knocking began. 3 sharp raps, confident, urgent. Then a familiar voice, muffled through the wood. "Emily, it's Chloe. Please, can we talk?" I froze. Another voice joined hers, Kira, sharp and brittle. "Open the door, Emily. This is ridiculous." Mark took a step forward, but I caught his arm. "No," I said. "Don't." Martin called. He said not to. The knocking grew louder. Then came Dad's voice. Calm, reasonable, the same one he'd used when I was a child apologizing for things I didn't do. Honey, let's be adults about this. Open up and we can talk." Talk. That word had always meant they talk. I listen. I pressed my hand to the cool wood of the door, my pulse pounding. On the other side, Chloe's voice cracked. "You embarrassed us. It wasn't personal. It was a misunderstanding," Kira snapped. "You owe us an explanation." Something inside me broke, or maybe it finally healed. I raised my voice, firm but steady. "You printed my children's faces and called it a misunderstanding. You owe them an apology, not me." Silence. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then Dad tried again. "Sweetheart, don't do this. We're family." I looked at the photos still open on my phone, at Ethan's missing tooth, Lily's innocent grin, and I whispered through the door, "Family doesn't need guards." Kira's tone hardened. "You're being dramatic. You'll regret this when everyone calms down." Mark stepped closer, his hand finding mine. "No," he said quietly. "They'll regret it." I nodded. The knocking faded to silence. Then the sound of retreating footsteps, tires crunching on gravel. Mark exhaled slowly. "That's it? For tonight," I said. I sat at the kitchen table, phone buzzing every few minutes, texts from Dad, voicemails from Kira, missed calls from Chloe. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I made grilled cheese sandwiches for the kids. Ethan dipped his into ketchup, Lily called hers a cheese moon. As they giggled, I felt something shift inside me. The world outside could fall apart, but in here, this small, messy house filled with crayons and crumbs, was peace. For the first time in years, silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like protection. The next morning, the world outside pretended nothing had happened. Birds chirped, kids played, and the sun dared to shine. But my phone was a battlefield of messages. "Dad, we need to talk, Emily. You embarrassed everyone." Kira, "That list wasn't personal. The venue required it." Chloe, "Can we fix this? Please don't be like this." And then one message that made me stop reading altogether. Martin, "I've pulled our contribution. The bar, tent, shuttle gone. I won't fund cruelty." He didn't need to say more. That afternoon, I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and created a new document titled Wedding Expenses and Next Steps. My hands trembled at first, but each word steadied me. I listed every payment venue: catering, florals, musicians, DJ, content team, even the ridiculous bride emergency fund. Total, $29,350. At the bottom, I wrote what I'd never dared say out loud. "You denied entry to the event you asked me to finance by posting my children's faces under the words, 'Do not admit.' This isn't revenge. This is closure and boundaries." And 0. I proposed a 12-month repayment plan, first payment due next month, automatic transfer preferred. Then I attached the invoices, added their emails: Dad, Kira, Chloe, Parker, and hit send. Mark looked over my shoulder as the email whooshed away. "You sure you want to do that?" he asked. I nodded. "Yes. I'm done paying for silence." Responses arrived fast. Kira, "How dare you threaten your own family?" Dad, "We can talk privately, sweetheart. No need for this." Chloe, 12 months? Lol. We're not a bank. Parker, "Let me figure things out." I stared at the screen and smiled, not with amusement, but recognition. I'd heard it all before. That evening, as I was closing the studio after my last class, a voice called from the door. "Emily?" It was Parker, still in his wedding suit, his tie undone, looking like someone whose world had finally caught up to him. "Can we talk?" he asked. I crossed my arms. Make it quick. He took a deep breath. That email was intense. So was having a guard turn my kids away, I said. He winced. I didn't know about that part until after. Chloe, don't. I cut him off. You didn't stop it either. He looked down at his shoes. You're right. I didn't. But I want to make it right. 12 months, right? Automatic transfers, I said. First of every month. He nodded. Done. Then, almost whispering, tell Mark I'm sorry. Tell Chloe. Never mind. When he left, the sky was turning gold. The studio lights reflected off the windows, and for the first time in weeks, I saw my own reflection without guilt. The next morning, the first payment arrived. $1,945.83. Memo line. For peace. I laughed out loud. Peace, the one thing money could never buy, but boundaries could. Later that day, Mark kissed my forehead as he left for work. You look lighter, he said. I am, I told him. For the first time, I'm not carrying someone else's debt or their shame. In the quiet of that morning, I realized closure didn't have to be loud, or dramatic, or cruel. Sometimes, it's just a spreadsheet, a line that says, balance owed, and the decision to stop paying for the love you never truly received. The months that followed were quieter, not peaceful at first, just quiet. The kind of silence that comes after a storm when you're still afraid it might start again. Each month, like clockwork, the transfer arrived. $1,945.83 memo. For peace. I'd watch it hit my account, take a deep breath, and then delete the notification. By the fifth month, Kira had stopped messaging. Dad sent random memes about family and forgiveness, pretending it all hadn't happened. Chloe posted filtered photos of brunches and sunsets, each caption another sermon about growth and choosing light. But growth doesn't happen in captions. It happens when you stop apologizing for your boundaries. On the seventh month, Chloe showed up at my studio. She stood in the doorway wearing sunglasses, even though it was cloudy, her hair twisted into a neat bun, her costume for contrition. Can we talk? She asked softly. I nodded, wiping down yoga mats. Talk. She took off the sunglasses. Her eyes were swollen. You made a scene, she said. You made a list, I replied. It wasn't personal, she whispered. It was a photo of my children, I said, with do not admit written across their faces. Don't tell me it wasn't personal. Her lip trembled. Mom says you've always hated me. I met her gaze. I've always paid for you. She didn't argue. She just stood there, small for the first time in her life. So what now? She asked. I exhaled. Now, we start over. We say hello at birthdays, goodbye at holidays. We don't exchange money. We don't weaponize guilt. And we don't put each other's kids on lists. She smirked faintly. You sound like a therapist. I sound like a mother, I said. Chloe nodded slowly, almost respectfully. Fine, she murmured. Parker and I got married at the courthouse last week. You weren't invited. I smiled. Good. She blinked, confused, like she expected me to beg for inclusion. When she left, I didn't feel anger, just relief. Month 8, then 9, then 10. Each payment came, smaller than the one before, interest and morality, maybe. Then one morning, an email from Martin arrived. Subject: refund summary. Applied final vendor credits. Your balance is 0. You did right by your family, even when they didn't do right by you. I stared at those words until they blurred. Balance: $0. It didn't just mean the money was returned. It meant I was free. Later that evening, Mark grilled burgers in the backyard, while the kids chased each other with bubbles. Dad came by, holding a plate of watermelon. He looked smaller than I remembered. He asked Ethan about school, Lily about her favorite color. Then he looked at me. You're different, he said quietly. I'm better, I replied. He nodded once. No defense, just understanding. Maybe even respect. As the sun dipped behind the fence, Mark reached for my hand. You did it, he said. I didn't fix them, I replied. I fixed me, he smiled. That's the only job that ever mattered. That night, after the kids went to bed, I opened my email draft titled Closure. I typed, "No more money, no more leverage, no more silence disguised as peace. If you can't respect my boundaries, you don't get access to my family." I didn't wait for replies. I turned off my phone, crawled into bed, and listened to the soft sounds of my children breathing, the only rhythm I'll ever protect. Some people will say I was dramatic, but people who profit from your silence will always call your boundaries rude. I didn't slam the door. I simply decided who gets to walk through it. And that, finally, felt like peace.